Thank you so much. I think Sabyasachi has said a lot of things, which I could respond to one by one, and I totally agree with you. Industry needs to do all of that, and many of us are doing that as well. I'm only going to try and give you a perspective from the industry. It is such a complex issue, and one could spend hours talking about that. But I would like to just draw your attention to a few things. What you said about industry reducing and then going on to the issue of wastewater. I think the industry's role is more than that. The fact that there are 4 people sitting here on this as all of them from different areas goes on to say that everybody has a role. Industry is not alone in that, and industry's role is not restricted to just reducing and treatment of wastewater. Industry has a role in replenishing and conserving water as well. The issue that I want to raise here is that let's assume if industry were to do all of that, and I'm not for a moment disputing that we don't need to do that. I'm talking as an industry member who realized this some time ago, that industry needs to take these steps. The point is that let's assume you get the industry to a point where all of them get their house perfectly in order. Will that solve the problem of sustainability? I'm only trying to point out to a fact that there is so much that needs to be done which goes just beyond setting your own house in order or playing a role that you've said. I think there is that whole chain of getting your own house in order, trying to do whatever can be done to replenish, reducing, recycling, and then going on to treating the wastewater and finding ways of using that. Is it only industries, or is it other stakeholders as well who can do that? Is something we can explore further in question answers. Our interest in water is very obvious. We are brewers, and water is one of the biggest raw materials for us. It's the key raw material for us. And we realized this very early on, that it's a resource which is under stress, and it's a resource that we need to do our bit in managing. I will not say conserving or just reducing, because our experience is that it's also a very, issues around water are very local in some ways. So you have to see where what needs to be done, and that defines your role that you need to play. So if I am within my operations, the things that Sabyasachi has just mentioned, which I would say are business, should be business as usual for a smart company, need to be done. But I think this is a room full of very enlightened people. You know that if you are talking of sustainability, if you are talking of long-term availability, you have to move outside the fence line and define and find roles for yourself, which if you were to go by conventional definitions, you may not think. You would have only thought that you were, your role is to get your own house in order. So I'm saying that water, while it's a global issue, it's also a very local issue. Wherever you think there is a stress, you will have to see what the solution to that could be and what your role to that could be. We are working in Rajasthan, we are working in Telangana and several other places. Everywhere the common issue is that water is under stress, but the reasons why it is under stress has defined what our role there will be, and therefore the interventions that we are doing there in those regions are different from one location to the other. A little bit about water stewardship. Again, to highlight the point of that the role of industry as the role of other stakeholders is beyond managing your own operations or your own footprint. It's very important for you to see what your role can do in solving the overall problem and assuming that role, which will sometimes take you beyond your own immediate interests or your own immediate requirements. Having done that, and I can say that because we are working in around half a dozen locations in the country, there is only so much that one stakeholder can do. So then the other role that we assumed, and I think other members of industry are also playing, is how do you drive others to become part of that process. Now, is that a conventional role that industry would see for itself? Probably not. But the scale of the problem, the scope of the problem, the gravity of the situation has demanded that you assume this role and create that sort of create that drive among other stakeholders, where you then start driving that process, not simply leading your own projects, but also creating platforms where you can drive draw others to play that role. So I'm only pointing towards unconventional roles or unconventional interventions that industry and other stakeholders would have to look at and assume. If you are talking of sustainability, if we are moving out of the CSR mold, if we are talking of overall availability of the resource for everybody, because this is a source that we share with others. This is a source where the risk is of collective making, and this is a problem which will require solutions which will have effect in a collective mode. I will stop there, and we will hopefully explore this more during question and answer.
Thank you, Meenakshi.